Right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Love Island cast. I am one of your hosts, Chris Phelps, and my co-host and very good friend is Mr. Dave Horrocks.
Hey there, Chris. And can I just say, nailed it.
Fuck you, right? Anyway. I think...
How many of these have we done? Have we just stumbled a bit on our intro there? But it's all on the cutting room floor, so that's absolutely fine. So, Chris, oh, God, again, it's getting all hot and drama-y in there. We haven't even got to Casa Amor yet, but that'll be coming up this weekend, I think. So, where do you want to start tonight?
I think it's just, to be honest, the whole episode centred pretty much around Mike. So we start off the episode with Leanne. Obviously, we knew she'd been voted off yesterday. Tonight, she's there, and she says to him, "I can't believe you've done that," and then starts crying in the corner to all the girls. And to be fair, Dave, I would, Sean, I'm not, 100% on board with, but I watched it a couple of times, that bit with her. And Shauna just gets up and walks off, Dave, when Leanne's kicking off, because I think she's probably pretty much real. And obviously, Sam, my wife, has said to me, she's my favourite. She's the most realist one in there.
She is.
And I think she was just like, oh, fuck off. Because Leanne, what are you expecting? I mean, we'll get on to Mike. And I'm sure a lot of the stuff that she has reservations about Mike, I'm not saying they're not unwarranted at all. We'll talk about him later. But I just didn't see it. And the reaction online was like, how, as much as there's not a lot of love for Mike, it was like, how do you expect him to react when you've just dumped him and pretty much said to him, I can't stand you, you make my skin crawl. I don't understand how he was supposed to do anything else than try and pursue something.
I am honestly, Chris, baffled. But I think sometimes we just get sucked in, don't we? Me probably more than you, and I believe it. I believe all these relationships, and then you take a step back and you think actually they're just a bunch of fame-hungry wannabes, And she's just desperate to stay in the villa. So I don't know on what planet she thinks that is, that Mike had any other option. It wasn't like I weigh up the pros and cons. That is an absolute closed door. And it seems to me that she thinks she can treat him like shit. But then because she'd gave up 2 weeks of her time to spend with Mike, this douchebag, then he owes her, to keep her in the villa. Yeah. I just think it's, the thing is, she's again though. She said on the Sun Lounger yesterday, she said, "Oh, he's obsessed with me," and then it's like, well, hang about. Then she's saying like, "Oh, you've done it to get me out of the way," and it's like, it's still you think he's obsessing with you, even though he's just voted you out, and it's like. Oh, I'm just utterly baffled by it. I think Mike didn't have any other choice. I guess I'm just a bit surprised that she felt entitled to stay in the villa. But let's face it, both Leanne and Sophie were fighting just as hard. They desperately wanted to stay in, and it was nothing to do with blokes.
No. Look at Naz, Dave. He was in a really bad position there, wasn't he?
And so you mentioned Shauna. It's going to be difficult not to jump around a bit because they did put him in a difficult position. We called it out before, the whole recoupling and everything. That's what they were doing. They were saying the words, it's totally your choice, but meaning something completely different. And Shauna's called it. They did put him in a difficult position. I don't think Naz necessarily even recognized that he was being put in a difficult position, so we shouldn't feel too sorry for him. But Shauna, for me, is the hero of tonight's episode because she absolutely fucking called it, and then she's ended up being a bit of the bad guy and being a bit persecuted by it. And so I don't think she did anything wrong in that conversation with Sophie. She didn't raise her voice and all she said was, she would have felt bad because Naz ultimately, all right, it's only a couple of days in, but he's got a genuine shot with Demi. Whereas with you guys, you just want to stay in the villa. It's nothing to do with Naz. He's just the person with a vote.
Yeah.
So she absolutely called it right. But then you saw because Sophie, the waterworks come out, everyone's being sympathetic with her. Now, I don't think Naz could have done anything wrong. I did think when he was comforting her, his rubbing of the leg was not necessarily 100%
Oh yeah,
appropriate.
I was thinking that. I swear to God, because he did like an aerial shot, didn't he? And I was like, oh wow.
That was so it wasn't just me then. It was a
No,
little
no.
bit like a bit too high up the thigh, I think, to be completely like friendly. But anyway, we'll forgive Naz for that at the minute. So yeah, he's just comforting his mates. That's absolutely fine. But then Callum puts his big fucking size 10s in it, doesn't he? Like, say, you've made Sophie cry, and then it all just fucking kicks off. Then I mean,
Yeah.
what do you reckon to that about how it was handled after Sophie broke down and for being called out for just wanting to stay in the villa, despite the fact she's supposedly coupled up with Connor on the outside.
Well, I mean, in my opinion, I thought that because she got called out by Shauna, who's someone who's really close to her, Sophie's thinking, shit, if she can see it, can everyone else see what I'm doing on the outside? You know what I mean, Dave? So I just thought she'd been rumbled with a game playing. I didn't necessarily see it straight away. It was only when I sat with Sam and we were chatting, and she's like, she's called it absolutely down the middle. And I took a step. I was like, you know what? You're fucking right. And I think Callum was daft. He just reacted. He just reacted to that, thinking it was right. But Shauna did say, which I found interesting, and I've not seen it on any of the shows, Dave, so she could be completely right, that she thinks that every time something happens, Callum sides with Sophie like he's picking. And I see a little bit of a crack there. And I'd never seen that. I don't know about yourself.
No, for me, that was just completely from left field. I haven't seen anything. It could be just in the bits that are edited out. But again, they look as solid as anyone, don't they? But
Yeah.
that, she feels like she's in this triangle and she's at the bottom of the ladder. That came from left field to me. I hope that was just, emotions were high, weren't they? I don't think there's anything in that. I think Callum, he wants a quiet life. He's and just typical. We know, don't we? Because we're from the north. Being blunt, it just comes with part of your upbringing. So sometimes a fucking blunt instrument is not the best thing in an emotionally charged environment. So I just think he's put his foot in it there. But like I say, with Casa Amor coming up, it's an argument that didn't need to happen, and so I'd have thought they'd have been pretty rock solid going into that, but that's just had me questioning now. Is there something we've not seen that's off camera? And maybe Callum is a bit closer to Sophie than what we're seeing in the edited shows.
It could be, Dave. It could be, and I think as well, that sort of little scenario ended, and then we got. I don't want. I mean, I'll want to address this actually, Dave. I don't want to call Mike Muggy Mike for the simple reason he's unfortunate. The guy who was originally called Muggy Mike, he's not with us now. As anybody who follows the show knows, exactly. So I don't want to address him as that, even though they're saying to him, "Oh, you've been a Muggy." I'd rather call him Sleazy Mike, Dave. To be honest, on less serious note, because the moves he's pulling on Jess. He said Sophie yesterday. He's now on to Jess. Obviously, like Jess, I've got to say, Dave, I've not been a massive fan of Jess. Not because she's ever done anything wrong, just for simply we've not seen a lot of airtime. And she was completely right what she said to him. She said, look, you are my type, Mike, but you didn't pick me. You picked Leanne. I picked you. I was interested, and I just don't believe it. And to be fair, 100% props to her because she called him completely out. What I was uncomfortable with was Mike's sort of persistent, like the way he was going at her. Now, Luke M, head's just completely gone, Dave. He was like a fucking meerkat at one point. He couldn't spin his head around quick enough, could he, because of what had happened. I think Mike is fine doing what he's doing, because it's the name of the game. Everyone's watched the pissing show. We're on season 6 of the UK one. Luke M, unfortunately, he's going to have to grin and bear it. 2 guys could come in, or 3 or whatever, from Casa Amor, and they're going to take her on a date. There's nothing he can do. But I think Mike, unfortunately, and what Luke M said to Luke T is, that is not the same guy I walked into the villa with. So, Dave, you have been absolutely right about Mike, and he's absolutely game playing, but it just come across as fucking sleazy as hell. And he's putting his arm around him. I mean, he's like going in the cinema when you're a kid. Exactly, going in the cinema,
I'm just
going.
Going to put my hand there.
Oh, sorry, I've just stretched my arm out and put your arm around you. It's just like, and you know on camera, I'm actually doing that, Dave. Even no one can see me off camera, but true though, isn't it? It's pathetic.
You know, there's an episode of Family Guy where Quagmire's, I think Meg has turned 18, and he's got his hand on her leg, and he's just like, oh, look at that little finger. It's just getting further and further up her thigh. And it's just the sleaziest fucking thing in the world. And that move, like, oh yeah, I'll just put my hand there. It was a bit, oh come on. I think, you know, so Mike is game playing. Again, he's going after Jess because Jess initially chose him for the date, right? So if you're going to go for anyone, go for the person who chose you on the date because there's clearly something there. I don't think there's anything there. And Jess, to be honest, I think you're right, Chris. I think Jess has played a blinder. So particularly since Eve has left, right? The advice she's given to the girls, the advice that she's given to the blokes, generally, I can't fault any of it. You know, and she doesn't get involved in the drama unless she, you know, in this case, she's fucking dead center of it. But yeah, so she's come off quite well. I do think she could shut down Mike a bit more, you know, so she's sort of, I think she's, even when she's talking with the other girls, you can see there's still that initial attraction there. She's saying, you know, Mike is her type. So I think that's why she's not completely shutting him down. But I don't see there was that much wrong with how old Justin Bieber reacted there. Let's face it, if you were in a club, you know, it'd be and the cameras weren't all on you, it would be different, wouldn't it? Because this is not just about being oversensitive and jealous and paranoid, you know, something in your head. Basically, he's told you he's going after your girl. You know? So the best outcome for him is that she chooses him over you. Fucking fight your corner then. That's and fair play to Shanice. She's not my favorite. I don't really like her, but you know, it was her who actually triggered him to, you know, go and get your girl.
Yeah. You know what? I felt the same, Dave. I did, honestly.
Yeah, no. So I mean, sometimes us blokes, we're a bit fucking stupid, aren't we? We're like, oh, what should I do? So you know, I thought that advice was good. Although she did keep it stum, didn't we? When Mike came over, he's like, "Oh, just come over and snatched her away." And he's just like, "Oh, really?" You know. So yeah, it's all just fucking good fun. This is what we love about Love Island, though, isn't it?
Exactly.
This is when it gets really exciting.
It does, to be fair. And I think you're right. I think Jess has already said there's not really much there between her and Luke M, and there's certainly nothing that we've seen on the actual edited show. I'll just see how it plays out. I just think it's just showing, to me, it's just desperado from Mike at the moment. If there's a genuine connection, Dave, and 6 months down the line, they're engaged or they move in together, Jess and Mike are these... I'll absolutely say, you know what, I was completely wrong on him. But I think Mike is just going to do everything he can and go from person to person. And especially with Casa Amor looming large, Dave, as soon as a couple of them new girls come in, as a single guy, he'll drop Jess. I'm telling you, I'll be so amazed if he stays loyal to her.
Now, we think... Who, Mike or Luke?
No, Mike.
Yeah. So there's no way, Jess. She's shown to me she's too smart to make that move. I think she'd be daft. I mean, he seems to have gone off Sophie pretty quick. That seems a bit weird. And focused on Jess. But like I say, I do think that's because of that initial first date, and he thinks she's attainable. He just has to stay in until Casa Amor, doesn't he?
Yes.
Because he just has to hang on with his fingernails. And then, you know, you've got 5 girls there who all want to get into the villa. And so he'll have his pick. He'll couple up with someone, whether he's with Jess or someone else. I think that's his game there. But I think it's pretty funny, actually.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
The fact that he's like doing it. They say the villa's massive, but you know, when they have these little chats and stuff, they're all in perfect fucking view. You could throw a stone at them, couldn't you?
But Dave,
They're calling him a snake, and it's like, well, to be fair, he's not doing it behind your back. He's doing it right there.
Yeah, but Dave, when he was saying to Jess, like, I'm your super, in fact, I'm your sexy side piece or something like that. I'm like, wow. Back on the modesty there, Michael. You know what I mean?
I haven't used this term for a while, but that is proper buttock clenchingly embarrassing, isn't it? You know, it's just absolute cringe fest. Now, what did you make to the whole speedy sex positions thing? Because Naz and Demi won that. I think. Well, we'll get onto some of the emails in a bit, but definitely, I think they're getting a lot of love. I think they're the only ones, apart from Callum and Shauna. I think that's the only other couple that I can get anywhere near invested in.
Yes. Yeah.
But I have to say, I've not seen. Demi has done absolutely zero to, to warrant any suspicion, right? From what she's done on the camera. I'm just a little bit burned from fucking Greg in the last season, right? So Greg came on, played an absolute blinder, right? He'd seen what had happened in the villa, came in, selected Amber, and basically won it by not being a complete dick.
Yes.
So everyone knows how popular. You know, she'd have gone in. They'd have been on lockdown, but they can still. You can tell by what they say. They can still watch the show. So she knows that Naz is popular, and again, he's attainable. So again, she's done nothing on screen, but I just have that inherent suspicion. Has she just gone after Naz just because he is attainable and popular?
It could be, Dave. It's happened before. Men and women have done that, depending on who the person is. No, I think you could be right. Let's talk about the emails we've had. I nearly said letters. Now, that would be a first if you get letters sent in.
We've had a fax through.
Yeah, we've had a fax. The pigeon's just dropped outside my house. Now, this first one's from one of our listeners called Jenny Cope. Now, guys, I will warn you, it's a fantastic email, but if you want to make a brew and pause it here, I don't blame you. So, shall we begin, Dave?
Yeah, go ahead.
Now, the email's entitled, "This email might be too long. Hi, guys. Just wanted to reach out because I'm clearly obsessed with this show. Currently listening to 5 Love Island podcasts and watching the Sidemen all-day reviews and the body language breakdowns from Metro. Now, that is dedication. I think I have too much time on my hands. As a Northern girl, I have no problem with your accents and really enjoy the perspective of 2 normal guys talking to each other about the show, which is definitely your show's USP. Even when your opinions are wildly different from mine. In fact, that's probably more entertaining. Right, let me get straight into my thoughts. How are the Islanders ever that surprised by a recoupling being announced? First, let's look at the Rebecca-Shanice triangles. To be honest, I don't like either of them that much, but Shanice has come off looking the lesser of 2 evils, in my opinion. I, too, don't really dig on the whole girl code thing, but Rebecca doesn't seem to even try to be friendly with all the girls, whose couple she isn't trying to split up. Like every time all the girls are together to build each other up, she's nowhere to be seen or just sat on the end with her face like a slapped arse. That's one of my sayings, love it. Like she's been forced to be there. Also, she's come in saying she doesn't care about the stepping on girls' toes and then act surprised and offended that doing so has caused upset. Can't be arsed with her. Shanice is just a bit annoying and has absolutely shit banter with whoever she's talking to. And shouldn't have gone off so hard on Rebecca in the first place, but at least the other Islanders seem to acting like her. All this over Luke T, who's an absolute toe in terms of personality. No chat and thinks he's all that. Now, Rebecca has gone with Wallace. They can be wiped away and no one will care. Okay, Leanne, Mike and Sophie. I didn't want to be too harsh on Leanne, like she wasn't sure about Mike and tried to pump the brakes last week with High Five Gate. Good. But he just kept being his relentless, smooth, cringe-inducing self and she couldn't take it. I do think she could have ended it sooner and was maybe worried about being judged for not giving him a chance, rather than worrying about the leading him on side. Because she knows she has issues with just shutting guys down. The way she ended it was harsh, but I think she was getting frustrated because she said it was over and he was just silently doing his smolder stare at her. And then she kept talking and it got harsher and harsher. So I'm not mad at her for any of that. I see where she was coming from and I would not be able to stand Mike either. He's a snake in my opinion. This was absolutely proved by the way he went around the next day. So repulsive. I think the guy is just not used to not being wanted by every girl he wants and not being able to manipulate them to think he's the big man. So, okay, I'm sorry, but in what world is Sophie an option? She's Leanne's best mate in there. I actually love watching their spying mission together because they had sweet FALs to do. He was supposed to have been mates with Connor before he left, and I know he was a gremlin and he's gone now, but he did just fancy Sophie the whole time. If so, it's even weirder that he's been calling himself her big brother all the time. I'm sorry, but if you like the girl, never say that. I actually love that Callum broke his word and told Shauna because he's still loyal to Connor, and they both called straight off that she would not have it. Mike made a show of himself with Sophie, putting him in the friend zone and putting him in the family zone. And amazingly, Jess read him like a book. I thought her and Luke M were a good match because they had one brain cell between them and both seemed to enjoy the driest banter I've ever seen, but maybe I underestimated her. Anyway, when Mike went back to Leanne on the bed, when she was napping, to see if she saw the display he put on, what he said to her was so gross. I know what, it's a great perspective, that, because obviously we'd seen it from the other side. So I think that's a great point, to be honest. Finally, the dramas around the coupling. What Sophie and Leanne did to Naz was not on. Even pulling him for that chap put him in a position he should not have been put in by the girls, who were supposed to be his mates. Putting your mates' happiness before your own friendship, 101 in my opinion, and it was selfish, beggy and embarrassing. I know that Wallace is basically a stranger to them, but he should have been in that chat instead of Naz. They didn't even think about talking to him. Definitely feel like this is the real nasty side to those girls that we actually hadn't really seen yet. The previews, I'm so glad Shauna is in there to tell Sophie straight. And what the fuck, Leah? Why would Mike pick you now? You owe each other nothing. Well done if you read all of this ramblings. I'll leave it there. I do have more opinions on other couples, but I think this is enough to be going on with. Thanks for the last, guys. We'll be listening. Jenny, amazing email. And I think that comment regarding Mike grossing out Leanne, that could be the perspective myself and Dave, as we always say, Dave, don't we? That's probably what we need with something like this. But fantastic email.
Brilliant. Fantastic email. I want to read you this next one, Chris, because it's entitled Still a Bunch of Pricks. Now, I don't know if that's reference to the people in the villa or us.
Well, Dave, it probably maybe us, but...
or I think it's one of those clever ones. It could apply to both. But anyway, it's from Dan Clark Hall, and it says, "Hey lads, glad Leanne is gone. Said all that shit about Mike to the girls, then guilt trips him for getting rid of her. Leanne and Sophie's desperation before the vote was embarrassing. Sophie's voice makes me want to ram my head into a wall. I wish Shauna was as good at noticing her bullshit behaviour as she is at noticing others. Shanice and Luke make me sad. Why do they both sound like they have head injuries?" I know Luke does sort of talk in that kind of slow way, doesn't he? So I know what he means there. This is my favourite bit, though. It says, "I know Chris gets a lot of flack for being a mank, but your accents are equally irritating." It says, "I'm from Bristol, though, and sound like Shanice. Cheers, Dan."
Now, Dan, I'm sort of half glad that you stuck up for me, but it is Dave who's been slagging off and trying to do Shanice's impression. Can we just clarify that in your next email, please? No.
I think I'm suffering from a Wurzels comment there.
Thanks, Dan. That's a great email. And we've had another email, Dave, from Kayla. She's put Love Island winners, but we have found the winners. I'm calling it now. Naz and Demi are going to win. Naz has the support that Ovi had, but with a girl, the audience will also love. If she's faking, then she's doing a great job, which is what you said, Dave. Mikey's playing the biggest game in the villa. He never had feelings for Leanne or Jess. Shauna was completely right about Sophie. She doesn't like Connor, and he's taking up space in the villa. Does Wallace exist? Question mark. I forgot he's there. Keep up the amazing podcast. So thank you again, Kayla. Absolutely brilliant.
That is brilliant. And again, despite my, what I said, my inherent bias, my inherent suspicion of Demi, they definitely have got a chance, haven't they, of going all the way, certainly to get to the final. Now, Chris, we've got 2 more reviews. Absolutely brilliant. So our stretch goal, let's call it that, to reach that 38,000 mark. We're getting closer. So this first one is from Hazy Heather, and this is in the UK store. It's entitled Brilliant. It says, "Loving the podcast. These guys don't hold back with their honest opinions and fully embrace their love of the show whilst acknowledging its absolute ridiculousness. Can't tell you how many lad mates at work that act appalled when you say you watch it. only to then want to know all the details when we're discussing it at break. P.S. As an Everton fan, I agree. Let's keep the footy out of the podcast for this season at least. So that is fantastic. And I have to say, Chris, so, I mean, of our friend group, we are the pariahs, really, aren't we? So, you know, we get called out a bit on the old Love Island, thinking of a few people in particular. But then, you know what happens? They end up watching it. So it's just one of those guilty pleasures. So thank you very much for that one, Heather. And for the second one, Chris, it's actually not there because I miscounted. So I'd already read out that previous one. So never mind. So again, if you could, so we had one more in the end. So again, loads of fantastic collaborations. Fucking love the banter, to be honest. So keep them coming in. Absolutely brilliant.
Oh, brilliant stuff, guys. And if you want to contact us and send in your emails, your tweets, anything, at Love Island Cast on Twitter or the Love Island Cast at gmail.com. As we said, if you get in your podcast app and just drop us a review in the show, it helps us try and catch up to the official Love Island podcast. So, Dave, great episode. We're going to the weekend fresh. Let's hope for some more drama. I'll see you tomorrow.
Bye now.